we started by talking about expensive massages, five-star hotels, and the First Lady accused of spending $10 million in public money on our vacations. We played sound of Eric Holder reading a speech at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Lunch. We'll have more of that, of course, going on now for weeks, no doubt, where he said we have not yet reached the promised land that Dr. King spoke of, again, right out of Animal Farm, where, if you remember, when a certain animal takes over Animal Farm, they talk that there's a lot more work to be done. I mean, it's amazing to me how the liberals don't see that they've been found out and pointed out, and books have been written about their behavior, and the rest of us see them for who they are. We all read The King Has No Clothing when we were children. We all read Animal Farm, and we see that this is nothing different than The King Has No Clothes at Animal Farm. It's an embarrassment. And so I raised the question of, class and such in the White House, and we've, I think, all concluded pretty much, whether we are Caucasian or African-American, however you want to put it, that their behavior, especially Michelle's, is not very classy in plain English. Then I launched into a small exposition of my views of the fault lines that existed in World War II between fascism and communism. And they've never ended. They have never been healed, and the same fault lines still exist. So if you listen to the rhetoric of the ACLU or the Associated Press or NPR, what you're hearing are the views of descendants of the so-called progressive movement of the 1930s in their grandchildren, where anyone who opposes their agenda is a reactionary. Words right out of the 1930s. Anyone who opposes their socialist communist agenda is a fascist. Right out of the 1930s. Again, all over again. Now, to be equally fair, we call them names too. Because rightly so, they are communists or socialists or anarchists. They have not changed. Their mentality is identical to that. So here in San Francisco, we have a holdover of the scum called anarchists. The lowest vermin on the planet. They stand for nothing but causing ruckus. So they tie up BART stations for no reason. Or they have a thing with bicycles on a Friday night called mass this, mass that, and they tie up traffic. If I ran the city, I'd grab them, I'd throw their bikes in the bay, I'd put them into breaking rocks for 30 days. If I ran the police department. I mean, we have a police chief here who tried to do the best when he came along in San Francisco. And after about a year, or 6 months, he said one word about the Somali community. He dared say that we're worried about terrorism in America, and he's especially concerned about the Somali community. They almost fired him. And there they came out of the woodwork. All of the so-called progressives started to scream at the police chief, "You're a racist, you're a thisist, you're a thatist, you're anti-Muslim." All he did was point out what everyone knows to be a fact in the United States of America. And now as the world turns, here we are. The fault lines are still there. Fascists, communists, realists, dreamers, anarchists, comedians. Michael in Sacramento, you're next up on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
The
Michael.
Listeners to the truth. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm asking you to speak. Go.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for telling the listeners the truth, the absolute truth about what Franco did. He was the last man to defend freedom against the communists. Everybody else led them in their country, whether it was through invasion or through propaganda. And he was the last guy to stop all that nonsense. And he did
it. Well, if Franco were alive and still in control of Spain, when the Muslims bombed the Madrid sub, would have made sure it never happened again. Instead, the opposite happened. Spain elected a socialist leader who then took down every symbol of patriotism, nationalism, and male pride in that country.
I've seen them do it. I lived there for 8 years. I just moved back. I've been there for 8 years. I saw them slowly take down every statue, every plaque. You mean the way that Clinton / Obama have been doing in America, taking down every monument to great Americans, destroying and decimating everything that's worth living for in this country? Absolutely. Get rid of
tearing the heart and soul out of this country's founders?
Absolutely, they do it they can't wait to do it,
And what is the average Spanish male like today? The ones whose great ancestors were the conquistadors. What are they like today?
Sad sack socialists, waiting for that government check. They think it's going to become Sweden there by the sea. That's what they think. A bunch of skinny vegetarians on their fixed bicycles. It's the same thing. When you see the typical anarchist socialist in San Francisco, you're seeing them, the same one in Madrid. They're a mirror image of each other, only worse.
Kind of a wet noodle.
Absolutely.
Kind of a limp noodle, a poor excuse for a man. And that, of course, creates a vacuum in the West into which enters radical Islam. They see a weakened, destroyed, wimpy West, and they move right in and say, we're going to take you over. And they are doing so. Look at England. Take a look at what just happened in England. The only forces in England who could have stood up to those masses, heads involved in those riots in England? No. By and large, it was not the skinheads, was it?
Not at all. Not at all. But I mean, these people...
In fact, I saw stories and pictures of skinhead neighborhoods where they linked arms and 1,000 of them kept off the mobs, kept the mobs from decimating their poor neighborhoods because they wouldn't let them into their neighborhoods. So the descendants of the thugs who built Britain, and make no mistake about it, they were thugs who built Britain. They pillaged the world to build a British Empire. They didn't do it through anything other than thuggery. And their descendants are now corralled, basically, and put into the back alleys of Britain by the, let us say, the advanced, the Camerons, the bicyclists. Let's put it to you that way. The nice, pleasant, vegetarian bicyclist who calls himself a conservative. And I'm a bicyclist. I'm not using that in any derogatory manner. I'm using it as a symbol.
No,
I think I made my point. Same thing is happening here.